Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Top intelligence chiefs in the United States have warned that Russian cyber operations have become more aggressive and pose a major threat to the US government. They were speaking at the start of an investigation by US senators into cyber attacks which the intelligence agencies say were designed to interfere in November's presidential election. Our North America editor, John Sopel, is in Washington for us. John, where does this all leave Donald Trump's relationship with the intelligence services who've been speaking today?
Decidedly rocky, George. What we have is Donald Trump being absolutely disparaging of the intelligence chiefs and their assertion that Russia tried to influence the outcome of the presidential election by hacking into Democratic Party computers. Yesterday, Donald Trump was tweeting approvingly of the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, saying the Russians had no part in it. He himself issued another tweet the day before saying, "Why have the intelligence chiefs delayed their meeting with me? Maybe they're trying to build a case." And so what we heard today was the intelligence chiefs, if you like, firing back, saying, "We assessed that only Russia's senior-most officials could have authorized the recent election-focused data thefts and disclosures." They said it was part of a multifaceted campaign, that it wasn't just hacking, it was also disinformation, propaganda, and fake news, and they said they had a very high degree of confidence that it came from the top of the Russian state. But the one thing that Donald Trump is determined not to accept, and I'm sure he won't even when he meets the intelligence chiefs tomorrow, is that his election victory was down to the Russians, because of course that would delegitimize his position as the president-elect.
John, many thanks.
The heads of America's intelligence agencies versus the man about to become their commander-in-chief. According to Donald Trump, he hasn't seen any evidence that Russia interfered in the US election, putting him at odds with the intelligence chiefs and leading members of his own party, like Senator John McCain, who called the Russian hacking an unprecedented attack on our democracy. And we've spoken to a key investigator who says the evidence points irrefutably at Moscow, as Porrick O'Brien now reports.
In the basement of the Democratic Party's HQ, Washington, eerie monuments to two American crises, shaking up notions of democracy and patriotism. One, the Watergate filing cabinet, broken into in '72. And next to it, the server that was hacked in 2016.
There's no escaping the fact that this committee meets today in the aftermath of an unprecedented attack on our democracy.
Today, at an Intelligence Select Committee hearing, the finger pointed squarely at the Russians for the umpteenth time.
I don't think that we've ever encountered a more aggressive campaign to interfere in our election process than we've seen in this case.
After the official farewell from the outgoing commander-in-chief, President Obama received an intelligence briefing on the hacking operation targeting Hillary Clinton's staff and the DNC. The briefing will, you guessed it, point the finger squarely at the Russians. Tomorrow, it's the president-elect's turn to be briefed, and given his rhetoric last year, the intelligence services audience will be much more cynical.
She's saying Russia, 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 but maybe it was. I mean, it could be Russia, but it could also be China.
And if it is Russia, which is probably not, nobody knows who it is.
It could also be lots of other people. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds, okay?
The problem for Trump, the intelligence briefing he'll receive will include the work of this man, the boss of the cybersecurity company employed to investigate who is hacking the Democrats, told us he's in no doubt.
This is an organization that has performed literally thousands of these intrusions over the course of 10 years, doing so on a weekly basis. This is not sort of an amateur operation where you have a hacker that's occasionally hacking something. This is precise 9 to 5. We have a mission to accomplish, and every week we're going to go and execute that mission. And through the forensic evidence that we have, we're able to tell with high degree of confidence that they're affiliated with the Russian government, and namely with the GRU, which is the military intelligence agency in Russia.
One of the reasons he's so sure, he says one of the hacking groups, codenamed Fancy Bear, obtained the coordinates of a Ukrainian artillery battery during the annexation of Crimea. Immediately after that hack, Russian artillery targeted those exact coordinates.
Obviously, identifying those people and their locations is of primary interest to the Russians and the opposition that they're supporting in eastern Ukraine.
All right, so that's the kind of track record that Fancy Bear have, like
that's
very
right.
targeted military installations and personnel.
Personnel that they could then kill.
I see.
And that have ended up dead.
If the president-elect gets information like this during his briefing, what will he tweet next? Yesterday on Twitter, he appeared to show a degree of solidarity with Julian Assange, for example, the founder of WikiLeaks.
In these tumultuous times, some comfort in the things that never change. Julian Assange's postcode, for example, here at the Ecuadorian embassy. WikiLeaks was the website that broadcasts these hacked emails. But in an interview recently, Assange said that Russia was not the source of the hacked emails, contradicting, of course, everything that US intelligence services said. Cue one of the most unlikely meeting of minds, the president-elect of the US, Donald Trump, and Julian Assange.
Today, President-elect Trump said the dishonest media were reading too much into what he tweeted about Assange, saying he was simply quoting him. What was harder to misinterpret, either literally or seriously, this exchange in 2010, where Donald Trump suggested the death penalty for Assange.
You had nothing to do with the leaking of those documents.
I think it's disgraceful.
You do think it's disgraceful?
I think there should be like death penalty or something.
We haven't been able to speak to Julian Assange today. The wider point here, an appearance that the president-elect gives more credence to Julian Assange's brand of intelligence than he does to that of the intelligence services. And at the Intelligence Select Committee hearing today, they were branding that a crisis of patriotism.
Warwick O'Brien reporting. Well, earlier I spoke to Evan McMullen, a former CIA officer who ran in last year's US presidential election as an independent candidate. He presented himself to conservatives as an alternative to Donald Trump. I began by asking him whether he believes that this was an act of war.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure that the distinction matters all that much. I know that it's a question that many people will have. I do think that what Russia has done to our democracy and in trying to influence it does represent an attack on our country. I do believe that we need to respond. I do believe that we need to respond in such a way that Russia understands that they cannot do this sort of thing again. They're continuing to meddle in our politics even until today.
Well, now, you ran in the presidential elections, amongst others, against Donald Trump. He seems to be getting much more public traction than anybody else who like what he's saying on all this. They like his attacks on the intelligence community, who he's blaming for a lot of this.
He received 10 million votes less than the other candidates. So most Americans did not want Donald Trump. Most voters did not want Donald Trump to be the president. He is the president now, but I think, or the president-elect, but I think most Americans, and I haven't seen the polling to support this, but I would imagine that most Americans, given Donald Trump's really terrible approval rating right now, are highly concerned about Trump's attacks on the press and the intelligence community. You know, we know, or many of us understand, that this is what authoritarians do. They attack the press, they attack the security services, they hold themselves out as the only source of truth, and that is exactly what Donald Trump is doing.
What is to be done, particularly about the hacking?
Well, I think first of all, we've got to have the facts as well known as possible, and so that's why it's good that our intelligence services have produced a report that I understand President Obama has in his hands today. I understand a declassified version of that report will be out perhaps early next week for Americans to see for themselves. So these facts are important. And so that part of those facts will come from the intelligence community. And then I would say that Americans and also Europeans, we all need to become very smart now on exactly what Russia is doing to undermine Western democracy. You know, if we want to hold on to our basic rights that are protected through our largely democratic systems, then we've got to understand what Russia is doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and that's a responsibility that all of us have as individuals. So that is the next thing that needs to happen.
With respect, I mean, when an entity, a national entity, is attacked, usually there's some sort of response. And I'm still wanting to know what you think the response to this should be. Should it be an attack on Russia, a cyber attack? It's an economic attack? What should be done?
I favor sanctions. I believe that there should be strong sanctions against Russia, punitive sanctions that will make the cost of this kind of activity more significant for Vladimir Putin and the oligarchs who support him. I think that's where we start. But I think there are a range of other things we need to do.
Although we have started in that direction already. I mean, there have been sanctions against Russia, and they don't appear actually to have produced any change in Mr. Putin's behavior at all.
They've been pretty weak. They've been pretty weak. I think they need to be strengthened. So that's what we need to do. I think another thing that we need to do is make sure that we're protecting European nations that are coming under Russian threat. And I think recommitting to the NATO alliance, both from here, from Washington in the United States and also in Europe, is an important thing. I think we've got to ensure that Russia isn't able to destabilize countries on its border that are seeking liberty and self-determination themselves and trying to protect their own relatively nascent democracies. And so these are the things that we need to do in general. And when we don't do these things, when we withdraw leadership from the world, the United States and its allies, then Vladimir Putin and other authoritarians like him calculate that they have a wider range of freedom to destabilize surrounding countries and to carry out acts that harm global peace, essentially.
Evan McMullen, thank you very much indeed. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us.